Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Now we are starting our third session. This session is going to be about IMEC corridor, the future of space, enable trade and logistics. For this, I have privilege to invite our session moderator, Dr. Chaitanya Giri, Space and Emerging Tech Fellow, ORF. Please join for Dicer. Now I welcome our panelists. Former Ambassador Sushil Kumar Singhal. Please join for the rise. Next I call upon Mr. Rohil Vashist, Head Legal at Adani Ports. Now I welcome Mr. Arpan Sahoo, COO, Co-founder, Callidio. Now welcome Commodore Sujeet Samaddar, Visiting Fellow, RIS. So I hand over to the moderator. Please start the session, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much for turning out in large numbers immediately after the lunch. This session has been in the works for nearly 5 months. So sometime around in February, I had a conversation with Rajiv Gambhir of SIA-INDIA. And I told him that, look, there's one topic that I have in mind, which is on the India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor, which we should take up here at the India Space Congress for 2 reasons. Number one, you do have country partners recurringly coming to you every year. You sponsor certain dinners, lunches. We have good conversation when it comes to discussing what kind of technical partnership can the 2 countries engage in. But technicality is not just about it. A lot of bilateral relations then start delving into the geopolitical relations and other variables which tend to affect that technology trade that you are so interested in. So technology gets affected by geopolitics, yet at the same time, when it comes to the executors, in this case, it's the space tech companies, they need to be apprised about what kind of scenarios and situations that are emerging. And with IMEC, the corridor itself, it's been 2 years during the G20 presidency of India when the corridor was announced with great pomp. There was steady support in the initial few weeks. And then you saw a very unfortunate event that turned out in Israel, which later on led to a lot of consternation as well as apathy that whether this visionary project, will it be ever executed? Now, yes, there are glitches, there are hiccups which do happen in lives, all our lives. We experience them on day-to-day basis, and so is the case with countries. What needs to be done is IMEC need not be there up at the top. It need not be seen from an orbital view, but we should start going into the nitty-gritties of the corridor itself. And one nitty-gritty is whether space tech companies can participate in IMEC. From what vantage point should these companies get into it? And can we ever fathom building an intercontinental transnational corridor that passes across oceans, lands, mountains, deserts without support of space technology? The Chinese, when they laid out BRI, we'll hear from Honorable Ambassador Sir, from Commodore Samaddar. When they laid out the BRI, there was a Space Silk Road component attached with it. The beauty of IMEC is that it's not a one country-led project. It is partnership of multiple countries. And that means you have tremendous opportunity lying around for Indian companies to partner with those from the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Israel, from Greece, from Italy, from United States of America, to come together for something, for a project or a mega project, if I may call it that way, whose execution, if it is executed, the budgetary span would go up north of nearly 600 to 700 billion dollars to begin with. Our own national Gati Shakti program is more than $1 trillion in worth in totality. Now we are talking about something which is far larger in its span and something which is much more complicated in nature. So without taking much of your time with this introduction, let me introduce you to my great panel that I have with me today. And I have 4 questions. What I'll do is I'll ask the question and I'll go across all of them, get their opinions, followed up with quick Q&A with all of you, and then we'll close the session. So I have a question right now immediately in mind, which is, I'll start first with Commodore Samaddar. Sir, in today's day and age, can we think of any corridor without space tech or with minimal use of space tech?
That's a very good starting point for this conversation. And had we used space tech to the fully leveraged it to its fullest extent, the IMEC may have a different map altogether. But not having, but having said that, I think whether it's the IMEC or whether it's border roads or whether it's national highways or railways, etc., the space-based surveillance and the analytics that it can provide to you can give you a range of information, and that information can be highly productive in making a more economic and effective model of the transportation system. Now, as far as the IMEC is concerned, the anchor points are quite well known. I mean, the anchor point is one port in India. Then there's one port or 2 ports in the Mid East, and then on to Haifa, and then on to 2 or 3 ports in the European side. Now in this whole thing, there's a lot of orbital mechanics involved to get the right swath, to be able to write projections, etc. But the key sector where infrastructure will have a huge bearing on this project is obviously the rail and road connectivity between Fujairah or Jebel Ali. Adani is also, Mr. Adani's representative is also here. So Jebel Ali and Haifa, or between Fujairah and Haifa, that is a sector that needs to be looked at. Now, in that particular segment, I'll talk about the maritime segment a little later. On that particular land component of the segment, the use of satellite technologies can be in 3 different parts. One is in the planning part. And in the planning part, we could use very good data from a variety of payloads that our satellites carry, whether it's electro-optics, SAR, or inverted SAR, or hyperspectral imagery, and IR, and whatever else that you have, to do some basic essential routing. What would be the best route to do this? And that can come from, modeling digital elevation models of the route and saying, what patterns can be developed, because it's across a sand dune, and sand dunes are continuously shifting. So heuristic data that space technology can provide can be a very important indicator of finding the best route. So that's from the planning part. Then when the implementation comes in, efficiencies in the route designation again comes in by using another set of space technologies and analytics which goes with it to be able to optimize your production means or the EPC contracting part in such a way, the logistics of it. What should be shipped from Haifa and what should be shipped from Fujairah, and at what point of this corridor, rail and road corridor that is being built, to give you the best efficiencies, both in terms of emissions, both in terms of the energy requirements, and most important in terms of the material requirements. So you have done that. This is again 100% doable. You need to sit with the data in front of you, and any good data scientist should be able to give to you. The third part is after you have designed and implemented it, then the major part is the efficient operations of it, where again you can use a lot of space technologies and bundle together with some other technologies, notably on predictive maintenance, which is anchored on artificial intelligence and some fuzzy logic and neural networks and all of that, and LLM, increasingly so. So that you're able to convert what you're doing on ground and communicate it correctly to the other person in the language that he wants to understand it. So therefore, in the land sector, all these three things will come in. As far as the space technologies for the maritime portion is concerned, there again it becomes extremely significant for you to do, for you to plan the voyage in such a way that you're doing slow speed steaming, you're at the right place at the right time, your waiting times are reduced, all of that, and route optimization can be done, including weather-based data. That, you know, I can tell him that, you know, please go port, go starboard, so that your point-to-point communication becomes optimal. And also you reduce waiting times at the ports, which is a huge burden. So the entire shipping business can be extremely efficient by using space-based technologies, particularly on what is known as instant weather forecasts, to be able to look at sea surface temperatures, to be able to look at, you know, ocean currents, to be able to look at waiting times, aggregate all of that. Same thing can be done at the other end. So clearly the question is very straightforward answer to the question is you can't do without it. So thank you.
Ambassador Singhal?
Thank you very much, Dr. Giri. I agree with you that, you know, keeping attention after lunch is a challenge. Whenever I'm on the other side, I always face that. I'm sure you are also facing that. But, you know, the subject is so interesting in my view. And Dr. Giri already mentioned this was in making for last few months. In my view, this concept of IMEC, as we all call it, is a game changer. And any game-changing concept has a lot of challenges whenever we try to do that. But this is one project which I find that is going to have a ready-made market, in the sense that the route which is going to replace are already choked. We all know what happened in Suez Canal in 2021. You know, the whole economy was devastated. And apart from that, what is happening is that they are overburdened. So this project, which has been conceived, as rightly mentioned, that it is not a one country project. It is a joint project, and I would add, it's a PPP model which can only work in this. Because without private participation, this cannot happen, because the governments cannot do it. And as we are talking here about the space technologies to be used in the project, it is very important that the private sector plays important role in guiding, I would say, guiding the whole process. And this, I would say, I will give an example here that when we're talking the use of space technology, digital technologies, you know, what we have done with UAE, that is I think is a model which can be used at a wider scale. You know, as you all, I guess you all know that you know, we have been using this model, regulatory, India has done the regulatory collaborations. We are talking about, you know, there is going to be a challenge because it's going to be not only multimodal, but also it is going to be, you know, regulatory requirement, custom requirement, immigration requirement, your TPTs, all kind of, you know, whole plethora of things will come. So this is, and of course the payments, various payments, because whole idea is to expedite. The whole purpose of this project is to cut down the time, because there is a study which says it'll cut down the time about more than 3 days from India to Europe. But if we don't solve those problems of, you know, how we are transiting the transit and the custom requirement, then this advantage will be lost. So there, I think the role of the space comes in handy. And as I repeating myself, that we already have a model with the UAE, which has done the digitalization, interoperability, and payment innovation, like UPI. You know, it's now a buzzword. That what we have done with the UPI is, I think, is going to be very, very helpful. But having said that, I must say that there are challenges. It's not without challenge, as I said in the beginning. Challenges are multifold, political, as we already know about it, what is happening in Middle East today. It's a big challenge, but in my view, it's a temporary phase. It's not going to happen forever, because it's advantageous to every single country which is involved in the project. And in turn to the global economy. Then economic, of course, as mentioned, the huge investments are required. So, but again, it's not BRI. It is a joint endeavor of all the countries who are going to benefit. So I think the consensus can be made, and the way we are talking about it, it's going to take time. It's not going to happen tomorrow. If you start thinking that this will happen tomorrow, it will not happen. It will take time. But technical and logistical challenges we have already spoken about, and there more and more will come. But here is the role of the private sector company in space who can make all the change. There is an opportunity for everybody. You start thinking today, and tomorrow you'll have a solution. Security, geopolitical, I already mentioned, and it's very important for India, let me say that. That India, this project is very important because it's opened the door not only for the Middle East, but also for Europe, and Look East policy. It will be a part of our Look East policy. Look at the Thailand and all that area, which will be linked up with that. So it's going to be win-win for everybody, and I say and clean economy, energy sources. We are talking not only, it's a very interesting project in that sense. It is a bundle of things. It's a clean energy, it's a digital, as well as multimodal, as we are talking about. New opportunities for everybody, but it has challenges, and where the role of you people come into. Thank you very much.
Over to Rohil.
Hi. So, yeah, wonderful listening to both ambassadors, sir, and Commerce, sir. So quickly, I think I have a couple of brief points over here. First, I'll speak on the corridor itself. I think the way I see it is, it's not an alternate to Suez Canal, though it's congested. I think it's a new setup altogether. And if I'm not correct, I think once implemented, what we will be seeing is a reduction of close to 40% in the transport time, and a reduction of close to 30% in the overall logistic cost. Given these parameters, I think once implemented, this is going to be beautiful. How do you align space technology over here? I think Sir has already spoken in detail that space tech companies can really contribute in navigation and route enhancement. I think that's going to be a major, another efficient point over here. I think from other perspective, we say, I think there's going to be a lot of play for companies who are in a position to contribute to safety and security. Please understand, the nations which corridors passes through, specifically on land, those are never lands. Saudi Arabia, I think the entire road belt would be through Saudi Arabia, and that region is absolutely uncivilized, right? There's no civilization close by. And that's where I think safety response teams, emergency rapid task forces, medical help would be extremely critical. So we do see a lot of opportunities for space tech companies, specifically in navigation, route enhancement, I think Meditech, and response analytics to come through.
Yeah, so not a lot for me to say more about the genesis of the IMEC itself left, but rather I would focus on the execution part of it, coming with a bit of experience of doing pan-India projects which require extensive geospatial infrastructure, and example like creating digitization for half of India on land parcels. So when you come to execution of that scale, right, the challenges that at least we see today is lack of first infrastructure. I mean, that's essentially where half of the problem starts with, is essentially have we invested sufficiently well in advance in anticipation of what objective that we are trying to do. I mean, today we are running out of cloud space storage within the sovereign capacity infrastructure to even host and process the data that we ourselves are generating, like just as a starting point itself. And then we have to rely on other providers, to cloud providers, to start selling out millions of dollars in infrastructure, which we could have probably invested into capex from today itself, right? I mean, that's one of the challenges that we see. But coming back to IMEC, what are we trying to solve? We are trying to solve for goods, energy, and data, right? That's what the corridor tries to do. It wants to move efficiently these three things as fast as possible. And space tech, if I start correlating with each one of those three pillars, goods, obviously maritime, followed by route planning, efficiency improvement, digitization, linking everything to internet, basically IoTs on every possible maritime asset, followed by land assets would appreciably help in converting a digital twin or some form of a digital infrastructure where everything can be processed and modeled efficiently, right? That's what I think the first step would be, followed by essentially route optimization and right-of-way management. And that's essentially the two things that today are the bottlenecks of any supply chain management. Is do you understand the right-of-way management, and do you understand how the planning efficiency has been done? And for example, we are trying to execute something in Europe, which is like 2 lakh kilometers of right-of-way management for a distribution company for energy. And the challenge is, like, how do you efficiently even monitor which trees are growing at what rate and whether the fall risk of that tree onto the distribution line. Now think of that scale. This is not 2 lakh kilometers. We are talking about distribution that's probably in the crore ranges, because we're talking about distribution spanning over 1 lakh kilometers, right? Now this kind of challenges is something we need to anticipate for. Probably we have not even thought in our 20-year roadmap. The Gati Shakti mission has not thought about it. The Swamitva programs have not thought about it. We are still to anticipate what a transcontinental program could look like. And this is essentially where we need to broaden our horizon, look way further ahead, and start investing into assets first, because we don't simply have that today to even capture that amount of data, store it, process it, and even the number of data scientists we have probably in the country would fall short. I'll rest my case with that.
So this time we'll go from the other way around. Arpan, I have a question for you. So we, on this panel, we have strategic experts. We have representative from the industries. You mentioned Gati Shakti, Arpan, and where you said that we did not fathom while designing Gati Shakti the massive data needs of that entire. Yeah, broadly, we did not fathom that there will be massive data needs and the data processing capabilities that would need to be invested in, day out. So trade corridors will also mean data corridors. It also means energy corridors. It also means a corridor which goes underneath through, let's say, optic fiber cables, and of course, the space component to it. What are the data volumes that we are looking at? So that's a question for you. Rohil, for you, the question is, are we factoring in supercomputing capabilities, large data centers, when you build ports and port-led infrastructure? And so for you, both of you, the question would be that what kind of money the government would be ready to deploy if there are these new enormous numbers that are going to crop up as we go ahead designing IMEC?
Yeah, I'll start with this as an example. So today, for example, a state like where I'm from, where we are situated, is Karnataka, right? A digitization of Karnataka, for example, led to almost a volume that's worth about 200 petabytes. Now that is just the raw data, and this is at drone scale. Now try storing that, then create derivatives of that data. You have to like bring layers of information out of it, metadata management, so on and so forth. And then you are talking about processing on the go. I mean, the number of GPUs that it takes and so on, and so acceleration and all that. I think the challenge here is, yes, can we have that infrastructure? It's totally in the realm of, I mean, petabytes are nothing, literally. We're talking about exabyte scale. It's totally in the realm of possibility. It costs about roughly 1 exabyte handling capacity, cost around 200 million worth of investment. Ballpark, I'm giving. Today, that's what Amazon invests in, ballpark and ballpark. So if we are talking about those and the lifetime over which you can amortize it, so on and so forth, it's totally in the realm of it, but have we anticipated is again the question fallback. I keep falling back on that. Are we not anticipating the right way? So that's the heart of it. When it comes to country level and so on, that is one challenge, but can you cover drone data everywhere in the country? It's not possible. That's the other part of the space tech. And as a company where we are, we do both downstream and upstream, as in we try to also capture data ourselves. It's not possible to cover the whole of India with drone. It's just impossible, right? And at the scale that we're talking about, we need in the order of 100 satellites. We have 25 Earth observation satellites in India. China has 250. US has 1500. That's delta, delta, delta. Just see the multipliers where we are. So again, anticipate where we need to get to, create that volume of data, create the infrastructure to back it, create the knowledge space also, which is the talent pool. Essentially, we will probably at some point need to talk about it, is where do we even find the people to start doing this? You know, it takes a huge amount of the economy that will be created around the IMEC will propel it. Believe me, the genesis, once it starts rolling, you need to worry more about execution far more than the geopolitical concerns of today. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everything will get solved in a couple of years, right? So that's, I'll stop there probably. Yeah.
Thanks. So I do echo what Arpan says. The fact still remains, do we need it right now? My sense is this will happen gradually, but will happen over a period of time. But immediately, I don't see there's a requirement. I think first we need to see this in some shape or form so the requirement arises.
Okay. So investment. Now, though now I'm in a think tank, but I spent 15 years in business, so going to your board for investment requires what is known as a business case. So unless you have the business case spot on, nobody is going to approve any finances. Having said that, in this particular project, as we've been discussing, there are clearly three segments. Apart from I'm just talking about the space part of it. There's an upstream segment, there's a midstream segment, and a downstream segment. So in that, we should try and see where does the government come in. I would think most of the upstream activities would be largely have to be financed through government sources. Midstream, again, could be a bit between the private sector and the government. And downstream is, I would think, largely dependent on the whatever JVC or the special purpose vehicle that we create to create the IMEC would probably be their investment. Now, when we speak about governments, I think a project like this, my sense is, and Ambassador Singhal can correct me, we would see a large role of the development financial institutions, you know, the World Bank and the ADB and all these other people there, plus, sovereign wealth funds, but largely development financial institutions. And all of them would require clear business cases for making that investment. For the ports and the railroads, they have to generate revenues, so that there is a business number there. But as you very correctly said here, in this whole process, we have three different streams of revenue. You know, I keep calling it. There's a main product. The main product is connectivity. As you said, within the connectivity, there are those digital connectivity, there's energy connectivity. Hydrogen, don't forget, one of the most important routings that this will do is hydrogen connectivity, which will go from the hydrogen areas from Myanmar to India to all of them, where the hydrogen economy is all here. The green hydrogen economy is all here. So that transportation will take place. The data cables will take place, as you have seen. Energy, in terms of hydrocarbons, we are not going to go out of that, whether it's 1.5 degree, 2 degrees, 2.2 degrees of global warming. Fossil fuels are here for a little while more. So that transportation will take place. And where the other sort of investments will come in, like our Delhi-Mumbai industrial corridor, is just not the industrial corridor, which is just this rail line. But, you know, hubs have been created around them. Smart cities have been created around them. So in my view, the public sector, the private sector should be able to identify these sort of opportunities that along the routing itself, the investment might be for, you know, laying pipelines and railroads and all that. But how do we, you know, there are mining sites there, which will take cargo midway. So it's not as if that you're going to take all your cargo from Jebel Ali and Fujairah only, but there is a lot of cargo which is going to be taken en route from the mining ores and all that, which are now being discovered there. So there is opportunity in that sector where the private sector can go in. So I'm talking about peripheral things. Data centers was mentioned. I would think most data centers would have to be in a place where there's enough energy and there's enough water. So these two things you need for data centers. So that would probably be at the anchor points of this whole program. And so therefore the funding, if you want to look at it, the investment that you look at it, would have to be in these sort of sectors. Break them up. What is upstream, what is midstream, what is downstream? Between upstream, what I would think most of the upstream work would have to be, heavy lift would have to be done by governments, and some of it by the World Bank. Midstream could be a mix. But downstream activities, I would think that much of that would come from the private sector. So.
I think this mostly has been covered. That's what my intention also. So thank you very much. But in my view, because this project, first of all, is a path-breaking. Two, it requires a huge amount of investment. So, and it has, so multimodal, many things, many components, sub-component into it. And so my view, first step should be to set up a secretariat who will, guide the process. Otherwise, if every country or every state try to do its own part, it becomes very difficult to coordinate because it requires a very fine coordination. So if a secretariat is there, it will help. And heavy lifting, as rightly mentioned, it has to be done by the government concerned. But along with that, what is going to happen, that it is not merely the road will pass, as was mentioned. It will be the entire, the technology upgrade will take place. Along with that, you will have, like in India it happens, whenever we have a highway passing through a new area, real estate develops, so many other industries develop. Same thing will happen in these countries, as it was mentioned that Saudi Arabia is completely barren. So it can be turned into an advantage, that new industry can easily come up there, which can feed to the other areas at a low cost, because at least the land cost will not be there, which has become a very significant portion in countries like India or in Europe, simply not available. So, private sector can think about taking advantage of those areas. So I'm just giving here the food for thought, adding to what has already been said, that opportunities are immense. But we have to start thinking now, which may happen maybe 5 years down the line or 6 years down the line. But we have to start thinking now. Otherwise, we'll all miss the bus like it happened before. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. One last question before we open it to the audience. It's not a trick question, but the thing is, our space companies, even at SIA-INDIA, a lot of our partner countries, are economically, geopolitically stable. They do not have turmoil. And it's very easy to do business with countries that give you stable environment, political, regulatory, of every kind. Here in India, we are also wanting to be that, stable in all sense, so that business comes in, there's a lot of manufacturing and all that. The main impediment for IMEC is the volatility of that region. And our space companies, particularly space companies because we are sitting here at the Congress, are we ready to start off operating in such geopolitically volatile regions? You may get good support from let's say the Saudi Arabian government, you may get good support from UAE, but again, there are certain players, if you go slightly up north towards the Levant region, where things get a bit shaky, a bit dodgy. Are we ready to do or offer services which have a dual role? It will also offer security, yet at the same time it will do what it is supposed to do. Arpan, start with you.
Yeah, and you can't expect the duality of the nature of space not to affect how the business is done, right? I mean, essentially, it is a dual nature, dual purpose use. So inherently, it will try to serve for both the needs. And coming to today, the fact of business, how we do and how we see business being done, except for the countries that are on the sanction list, I think pretty much business is possible in some form or the other across the globe. There is really, there are workarounds. If not, if impediments are there, they're still possible to do business. We don't see any major challenges to that. But would we like to do business? The problem is can versus will or should, right? yeah, we can do business, but the challenge is the ever-shifting geopolitical situation puts its own constraint, because I might piss off one superpower if I do business with somebody else. While a good portion of commercial companies' exposure to market in that country could be significant. And so it becomes a commercial interest or safeguarding decision by the board of that company. I mean, this is what reality is, right? You essentially take a decision. I don't want to do business because I don't want to probably leave exposure in a big market where situations could do something. I mean, somebody posts something on X, and then I'm done, right? I mean, yeah. So yeah, those kind of volatile situations and challenging, I would say, boardroom calls are what's stopping us. But coming to where and the intention of IMEC by itself, I feel that we are trying to put too many people and expecting Noah's Ark to take us, but the bus might take a long while. In the interim solution, while we get to there, in our opinion, is to start looking at multilateral arrangements, not the whole of the entire the people sitting on the entire IMEC corridor, where common interests are easy to be achieved in the short run, like let's say low-hanging fruits. Like some countries, we have very strong interest with energy prospects. We could look at creating part of that infrastructure in phases, but while keeping the overall roadmap same. And this is what we're really trying to do as well when we start working today with countries, is to look at both upstream and downstream part of the space business. Matching those multilateral arrangements first instead of trying to hit a global solve for all approach. I think that's where we are heading towards from an industry perspective.
Thank you.
So, in context of companies who want to participate in this space, specifically companies in space sector, the way I see it is, I think, yeah, it is possible. There's no reason for people not to participate. I think a couple of things which will be important going forward. One is multi-level collaboration and multi-jurisdictional collaboration. Indian Space Company, I think they would need certain undertakings from various sovereigns, especially the corridor nations. At the same time, I think once this is put in play, there would be some level of maturity, some level of enhancement, and we will see a lot of insurance companies coming into play for all the disruptions, if and ever caused. So yes, I don't see a reason for this not to happen, but there has to be certain safety nets for the players to come in, specifically multi-jurisdictional collaborations, where the countries are not just supporting their companies, but companies from all the corridor nations.
So the risk appetite of companies vary, right?
It does. It
It
does.
does,
It does. It depends on the maturity level of the company, right? A company which has been in the business for 10, 15 years, I think the risk appetite to operate in such areas would be far more higher, right? And a startup, right? They will find it slightly uncomfortable to immediately start in such a jurisdiction. And I think over the period things should smoothen out. So,
Thank you. Sir?
Thank you. Very interesting discussion. Broadly, I think the concept here is, as you very correctly said, the risk-tolerant appetite or the risk-averse appetite of the participating entities. Now, once that has been, that is one part of it, but before that is risk identification and risk mitigation. So now on this route itself, the risk mitigation, the risk identification has to be done, which is again quite possible using space-based technologies. You know, if you understand, if you have the right orbital mechanics on it, the latency on the observations can be reduced to very small durations, maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, that's more than enough that you can get that. So you get enough forewarning, etc. So that is one thing that space can do for you. And I'm not saying that you have to have some geostationary orbit somewhere else in the world, but LEOs in the right orbital mechanics can give you sufficient amount of warning of anything that is happening if you are monitoring that area. And since it's going to be such a high value and such a huge amount of transactions that is going through this region, I would think that most countries would want to monitor it very, very carefully, because any disruption on that will have a devastating effect not only on the project, but also its future viability when an investment has already been made. So that is the first point. The second thing on this is, there's a discussion on bilateral and multilateral. I mean, if I was going to do this, I would like to have much more back-to-back bilateral agreements. You know, I just want to make sure that my cargo is going from let's say Hazira to Fujairah or Jebel Ali, I want to secure this. So I would do a bilateral arrangement between A and B and get that right. Somebody else's cargo is going from somewhere else to point B, have that also done bilaterally. And then you have the third point, which is also done bilaterally. And these are all back-to-back agreements. That might be easier to negotiate than to have one umbrella mother of all multilateral arguments with 20 states in it. Each have its own national interest. Within the country itself, there'll be industrial lobbies and so many other things. So my approach would be, as the Secretariat, as is proposed by Ambassador Singhal, could do this, to be able to stitch together standard bilateral agreements with standard legal clauses in it, with standard understandings between the parties. That might smoothen it out. So once we have got that in place, then we can, combine it as one multilateral agreement. But if we first go and try negotiating with 20 countries, already 6 of them are there, plus some more are joining. So that can be, it'll take us 20 years to do that. We may be able to do it better diplomatically. Of course, Ambassador Singhal is the expert on that. As a diplomatic initiative, we might like to do bilateral agreements and then sum that up as a multilateral agreement to understand the risk and then develop the risk mitigation strategy around it. So, thank you.
In my view, I think one, of course, we're talking about the risk appetite. But let me warn you that, we have to become, we are very risk-averse country. We want to go where, everything is available on a platter, but, there will be many others there then. So we have to, of course, take care of our bottom line, but we have to start thinking bit out of, comfort zone. Then only we can, make a space for ourselves. So that is very important, which for everybody to ponder about. We start thinking that, there is a risk, of course. Whatever we do, there is a risk. When I'm exporting to, I mean, give you an example, our neighborhood. Who thought what has happened in 1 year back? Totally things are different. So there is a risk there also, which I don't think anybody had taken into account. So these black swan events keep happening. But how we take advantage or we take into account, that is very important for all of us. If we want to become something different from what we are today. Let me put it in this manner. And so that's the one food for thought I will leave. But coming to space, since we are talking about the space, let me give an example of the new technologies. NHAI now is thinking of TOL based on space. No physical, barrier or monitors. Everything is going to, I've been told that they can check even the air, tire pressure of the vehicle from the space. This kind of technologies are coming up. So when we are developing technologies, keeping this sector in mind or this corridor in mind, it is not limited to IMEC. It has so many other utilizations. So we should not think on that I'm doing X only for this. You think about what technologies are required, what I can do, which will have a multifarious purpose. That is the whole idea of this thinking process, that you take advantage of it. Just don't limit yourself to IMEC. Make use of it for others. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. With your kind permission, can I open it for the audience? Okay. Audience, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. And, sir.
In this fragile moments, where we see is how one is going to be protecting the interception, whether it is digital, whether it is physical, whether it is what I would say is protecting security systems, and it's getting more and more complicated to have to know the threat perception and to avoid the threats which are coming. So in this kind of a line, where it would be in this fragile system, I'd like to understand that, because it's a new phenomenon which has started happening lately, where we are having wars, battles, and sudden eruptions.
Who is this question for, sir? Anybody?
Anyone?
Anyone?
I mean, just from a space perspective, I'll restrict my domain understanding in space and answer from a pure space perspective. So we have excellent capabilities right now in terms of understanding where space assets are, like space assets, like who is looking at whom at what point in time, and predicting when they could possibly have visibility on you next. That's entirely figured out. Like literally, you can tell when is the next XYZ satellite gonna come over. No, I'm talking about just space for now. First, let me just put just that. From a asset perspective, I think that's well figured out. Now comes to the which is the part of the C4 ISR, the entire spectrum we are looking at. We are looking at also the data flow, the cyber security, communication, so on and so forth. I think that's where the major challenge is interference, snooping, and possibly spoofing also, like, fudging the data. It looks like good, but it's probably not good. And all of that, I think, requires a robust security layered, multi-layered infrastructure. It's not something, there is no quick fix to it. There is no one solution that will solve all your problems. No, you can say that quantum is probably the next breakthrough, but implementing quantum at a country scale is we are far from it, right? So we are looking at tiered security infrastructure with layers of, I mean, there are experts who do this probably for a living, but from that experience, I can say we should invest into creating those tiered. We don't have a tiered infrastructure yet in the country. We are open in a still in some fashion, except probably the finance and the transaction-based domain, which has a very, very robust infrastructure. But outside of that, I don't think we are still ready for it.
That was one point. It's a long route.
Yeah.
And $600, $700
$billion.
US dollars
Yeah.
we are talking of. But this could extend into trillions, because
Just the space component.
so that was my point. Like, where would it, and possibly Commodore can help in, because the security systems are getting more and more complicated. Even the best of the technologies are getting penetrated, and the best of technologies are also avoiding what I would say the third perception. So where would it meet? That was the, in this fragile situation. Otherwise, this question wouldn't have come.
So, of course, the key point is the threat perception, right? So, there are 2 or 3 different, methods by which threats are mitigated. One is that you develop a certain capability, or you do a, threat versus sort of each threat, look at it, and next threat, look at it, and do that. So, I would think that such a project, and as has been mentioned earlier also, will have a clear security overlay to ensure the sanctity of that corridor. And that corridor can be impacted by various sort of things from the Houthis. I mean, if they can target ships which are 100 kilometers away, 200 kilometers away, surely they can target this if they want to. I mean, it is feasible to do so. It's a static target, even easier. So how does that work out? So, ultimately, the largest tool that will be used for ensuring the sanctity of the corridor will, in my sort of humble opinion, be mostly diplomatic. And that is going to be the way to go ahead, because to put a military dimension to it and, policing it and all of that will just add more to costs. And I think that may be something that we'll have to investigate. But clearly, before we get to that point, this laundry list of all the sort of threats that might happen onto it, and what is the capability that is required to mitigate those threats, that is an algorithm that has to be developed. I hope that answers some.
So more than
bit of
military
your question.
security, it is industrial security that will come into play.
Yeah, industrial security can be in terms of your supply chains, for example. Then it can also be, it can be devastating. If you're doing a hydrogen pipeline, and if somebody targets that hydrogen pipeline, which I don't think will be overground, but it can be quite devastating. It can You can do many of these things. You can play around with the railway tracks, you can play around with shipping centers, etc. But clearly, some understanding of the overall security environment would be useful, and thereafter, have this mitigation ideas developed around those threats. But a certain capability will be required to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think voyage risk has existed since antiquity, right? It's not something specifically to this corridor, right? Voyage risk may exist in, I think, close to Suez Canal, under the Arabian Peninsula, close to Somalia. I think like any other risk, it is in existence, whether there are hostilities in this corridor or not. The point still remains, I think the whole point of having this corridor is that not just private enterprises, but the nations themselves collaborate. And I think the key element in collaboration would be also securing this entire corridor through using your own assets in terms of government, not in terms of private enterprise. Government at the end of the day has to protect the private enterprise for the corridor to succeed.
Any other question? Anybody? Yes, sir. So please introduce yourself.
My name is Rohil, and I. Hello. So my name is Rohit Sood, and I represent a company called We Care Technology and Consulting. I was hearing to the conversation which was talking about the securing the manufacturing units as a whole. So I just wanted to understand, because the biggest challenge at the moment with the government of India is that the convergence of IT to the OT. OT is the operational threat technology, which encompasses the securing all the critical installations as well as the SCADA and PLC systems. And the biggest challenge now the government faces from the last 2 years is the convergence from IT to OT, because the IT has its own domain and own functionalities, and converting it all together and securing the operational threat security is a big challenge. So how do we mitigate that challenge, sir? That's the question.
Who is this question for? Anybody?
An answer.
You want to take?
So there are a couple of things here. IT and OT is definitely one. But as you might know, India also steered the concept of the Coalition for Disaster Resistance Infrastructure. It's a charter. It's got a lot of things. The secretariat has now been formed up. But such a huge investment in infrastructure, both at the last mile and during the intervening period, would have to be disaster resilient. And that disaster resilient concept is not limited to, floods and droughts and famine and all that, but other disasters that can happen to it. So from an operational perspective, from a sort of techno-legal perspective, the charterization of the Coalition for Disaster Reduction Infrastructure, I think 40 countries have already signed in. That will help us understand how do we build this infrastructure using the technologies that space offered, so that the disaster mitigation is factored in that time, in the largest possible sense. And each of those disasters can be put in different buckets, human disaster, climatic disasters, attacks and this, that. And thereafter you can make mitigation strategies according to it. But to say that, I'll now protect some plant in Ghaziabad which is making some transistor and all that, which might go through the IMEC, वो कुछ ज़्यादा ही हो जाएगा फिर.
I think you have already covered. But the thing is, we can take precautions. I keep coming back to the same point, because the last two questions have been on the same point. We can take precautions, but nobody can give a 100% guarantee for anything. We have to take risk, otherwise we'll sit at home.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, with that we come to the end of this wonderful session. Thank you so much, Arpan, Rohil, Ambassador Singhal, Commodore Sujeet, Samaddar. Sir, it's been an honor moderating this session with you all, and I hope you all enjoyed this session. A lot of key takeaways. The idea of the session was to just shed off the inhibition regarding IMEC and sort of push the pages of that discussion further, so that we go into the nitty-gritties and not let it be an esoteric project which was announced at one point in time in the history. So let's galvanize it, let's keep rolling the ball, and that's how we all progress together. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir. So as a token of gratitude and appreciation, we now present mementos to our eminent panelists. So may I request Dr. Chaitanya Giri, sir, please present the mementos to former Ambassador Sushil Kumar Singhal, sir. To Mr. Rohil Vashist. Now to Mr. Arpan Sahoo. To Commodore Sujeet Samaddar. Thank you, sir. May I now request Mr. Pawan Kapoor, board member of SIA-INDIA. So please present the mementos to our session moderator, Dr. Chaitanya Giri. Thank you so much, everyone. Please put forward for the group picture. So as now it's completed the sessions, no, it's time for a short networking tea break. So we'll resume at 15:45. Thank you.
Very nice meeting you.